I'm investing in out-of-state single-family homes, duplexes, primarily only purely for cash flow. Um, at the moment, my portfolio is comprised primarily out of properties obtained purely through turnkey providers. I find at the moment, I find that it's a really good fit for me to get some experience under my belt, some properties in my portfolio, and then kind of learn the entire process. I like to kind of branch out into my building my own team and even doing my own BRRRR investing eventually, and even expanding into multifamily down the line. But I find as I'm currently just starting out, the turnkey providers have been a really good fit for me so far. As you know, being a California investor, we're privy to a lot of wonderful. We're really tax disadvantaged in terms of in terms of anything related to real estate, including the $800 franchise tax fee for setting up an LLC. But as most folks in the country do, they usually resort to establishing an LLC for their properties owned, maybe even a series LLC. But being uniquely a California investor, I was searching for a solution that eventually I would discover is actually a real legal solution. But I must have scoured the internet for weeks trying to find a solution to simply establishing a series LLC and paying through the nose $800 for each LLC established for an expanding profile. And then on all my searches, it actually kept bringing me back to a guy named Scott Smith on all the forums talking about something called a dilatory statutory trust, which I eventually learned was exactly the solution I was looking for. I mean, at first, based on my research, it brought me to your website, and I was thinking, my first response was, I'm not doing anything of sort of a 1031 exchange. Why would I need a DST? But I would later learn that it's actually a unique business DST structure that very closely aligns with current series structures. And so bringing it back to real legal, that was actually the exact solution I was looking for, and that's how it brought me to you guys. Primarily, it was for someone like me just starting out. It actually allowed me to actually cash flow rather than strip all that cash flow and re-diverting it into the heinous taxes, franchise tax fees here in California. I mean, it pretty much enabled me to even continue to invest, because otherwise, I mean, it probably would take me into the red. With each acquisition of each property, I was kind of feeling like each time I acquired a new property, I was becoming a larger and larger target. But finally, I realized I had to kind of pull the trigger and set up an asset protection structure to actually feel like I can continue to invest and actually sleep at night. With the DST in place, I mean, it provided, using the land trust, it provided me with enough anonymity and to actually sleep at night and not have to worry so much about each acquisition making me a larger target. Actually, it's almost like it's set my business on autopilot. I mean, Royal Legal was able to really simplify the process. Pretty much whenever I acquire a new property, I'll shoot over the day after closing. I'll shoot over the warranty deed over to your production team, and then in a few weeks' time, they'll neatly slide it into my DST as a child trust, and then pretty much take care of everything from then on there. It's kind of like Royal Legal Solutions team became my own team. So yeah, it's made it a lot easier to move forward and concentrate on the more important matters than incorrectly setting up myself. Primarily, I see, and this is probably the route I would have eventually succumbed to it if I hadn't tried scouring the internet for an alternative solution. Primarily, the strategy in terms of adopting a structure would be an LLC. They would establish a shell LLC and then perhaps have series LLCs as child LLCs for each property obtained. Maybe even group several properties into each LLC. But as a California investor specifically, that would expose them to a lot of additional costs that other folks in other states, investors in other states, may not be privy to. So the DSC structure largely avoids that by, other than the parent operating company LLC. As purely as a planning entity, it doesn't require the same types of fees. California is going to get theirs. So just purely by doing business, just by having any affiliation with California, really, they're actually doing business in California and thereby subject to those fees. If I'm going to be honest, they've really surpassed my expectations. Since the first phone call with Tom and telling me about the asset protection structure, I don't know how many emails and questions I've actually sent over from even really small, obvious questions to really important nagging matters. They've always responded usually within a couple hours, sometimes within most of the time within 24 hours max. And if at any time they didn't have the solution, they would find someone else on the team, usually Megan seems to know everything in order to respond. So they've been wonderful so far, and that's primarily why I wanted to come onto this project with you to let them know how wonderful they are. I would say insurance, the insurances are there primarily to make money. So even though that is a necessary part of a good protection structure, it's really incomplete in terms of asset protection. The insurance companies, most likely, not to speak negatively, but they might be even try to find a way to not pay for any types of claim. It's much better to actually have a structure such as anonymous land trust to prevent that from even happening in the first place. Rather than being reactive, you can be more proactive by establishing a structure that prevents those suits from even beginning in the first place. In my recollection, the anonymous land trusts make it so that pretty much they take the target off your back. In that folks can't even locate. I believe those are actually public files, but it makes finding that information, uncovering that information so difficult that it's actually not even worthwhile for the lawyers to begin to do that. So it not only does it prevent frivolous suits from beginning, but it also kind of masks your overall profile so that you won't even be a victim of attack in the first place. Other than the responding very promptly to the plethora of questions that I have about big and small questions regarding my business and even in operating it. I see the family office structure, the monthly pricing structure as very advantageous, as opposed to calling up an attorney that might be familiar with the specific types of questions I have, and kind of paying per hour per question. I mean, that's I find the family office to be a very, very efficient way moving forward. I mean, without that nagging feeling that someone can actually attack me anytime and take away everything that I've been working for. It's really allowed me to concentrate on what's important. And I mean, besides expanding my real estate portfolio, I mean that means I can actually through Royal Legal they've even established things like my living trust, so I can kind of take care of my family at the same time as I'm taking care of my business. The primary value I see is actually helping me to establish, obviously, my structure in order for my protection, but also to kind of put my overall business kind of into a very organized view for me to focus on the specifics that important specifics that I need to do. I would say if they, especially if they're a Californian, if they have any sort of ambition to actually expand beyond one or two properties as a real estate investor, and to take things seriously, they should really move on establishing an appropriate structure for their protection. I mean, it's unlikely that they'll be able to expand with any sort of efficiency without protecting their home base.